comments today said that the government would be there for as long as it takes. And so now we get to see sort of how long it will take and how much the federal government needs to be involved.
We don't yet know the cause of the fire, but there's been some controversy in recent days over the possible role of climate change. What can you tell us about that?
Right, this has been a large point of discussion around the fire, but at least in Ottawa, it's been a bit measured in terms of how politicians are discussing it. Elizabeth May made a bit of news when she talked about the links that climate change has to events like this, but she was very careful to say that you can never say that one specific event is due to climate change. And the Prime Minister, when he was asked about these comments, essentially said the same thing, that know that that climate change is going to increase the prevalence of fires and the prevalence of disasters, but you can't link it to one specific event. And even when you try to link it to specific events, it can be counterproductive. So that discussion may evolve as time moves on, but for now, I think people are trying to be more concerned with the immediate effects of the disaster in Fort McMurray.
Aaron, thank you.
Thank you.
That is CBC's Aaron Wary in Ottawa. Outside of Alberta, other parts of the country are also struggling to control wildfires. Strong winds and low humidity are making it difficult for firefighters to battle two wildfires on the Manitoba-Ontario border. There have been evacuations in at least two communities in the area. And in northeastern British Columbia, some people have been told they can return home after a wildfire forced them out earlier this week. An evacuation alert remains in place for other parts of British Columbia. They're dubbed the Panama Papers, and they've sparked a worldwide debate over the use of tax havens. Details behind 200,000 offshore companies registered by the Panamanian firm Mossack Fonseca led to the resignation of the president of Iceland and linked leaders in China and Russia to corruption. CBC News and Toronto Star have exclusive access here in Canada to the 11.5 million documents that make up the data leaked last month. Tomorrow, some of that information will be made public. As Natalie Clancy reports, the secret affairs of at least 625 Canadians will be open for all to see.
200,000 company names, addresses, and shareholders who use the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca to move money offshore will be secret no more tomorrow afternoon. The data will be released on the website of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. You will find more than 2,100 offshore companies linked to Canadian addresses. The corporations, foundations, and trusts are registered in 8 popular tax havens. The British Virgin Islands, by far, the shelter of choice for Canada's one percenters. So far, CBC News has identified 625 Canadians. Kim Marsh is a former RCMP fraud investigator who now works in risk management. He believes lifting the veil on the offshore world is long overdue.
What it does is send a very clear message to a lot of people that you're not safe anymore, and you may end up in the front page of the paper.
Brooke Harrington is a sociologist at Copenhagen Business School who infiltrated the offshore finance world as part of her research.
The goal of most wealthy people is not just stop paying taxes. It's, I want to do what I want to do and have nobody able to stop me. I mean, it's sort of like a kid's way of thinking about the world. You're not the boss of me.
Some predict the data may lead to more prosecutions of tax evaders or fraudsters. Dan Ziddy is a former auditor at a Vancouver tech firm that makes anti-fraud software.
I'm interested to pull that data down and begin to analyze it with some more advanced tools and techniques so that we can see for ourselves how much trouble there might be here.
But you will not easily find names of actual offshore account holders. There's a pattern of offshore corporations owned by another corporation, which is owned by a foundation, which is maybe owned by a trust. The real owners often concealed. Names like UNICEF or the Red Cross are often listed as beneficiaries, unbeknownst to them, to shield the private citizens behind the money. Gerard Ryle heads up the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. One of the reasons he's releasing the data is to solicit tips from the public.
We do a crowdsourcing on the material to see what stories we might have missed and to allow people to basically tell us what's out there by seeing the data.
Ryle faced heavy criticism after speaking at a tax haven conference in Miami last week. Many lawyers argued this is stolen data that should never have been revealed. Natalie Clancy, CBC News, Vancouver.
This is the world this weekend. In Aboriginal culture, the drum is round like life. On this Mother's Day in Thunder Bay, Ontario, they walked and drummed for the loss of Indigenous women and young people.
Drums are a healing tool that we use whenever we feel down. We pull out our drums to call on the Creator to help us.
Beating to the heartbeat of Mother Earth later on the World this weekend. North Korea's leader says his country would not use nuclear weapons unless its sovereignty is threatened by those with nuclear arms. Kim Jong-un spoke on Saturday to members of the ruling Workers' Party Congress. The footage was broadcast today. The CBC's Nella Ayed joins us from Pyongyang. Nella, what can you tell us about Kim's address?
Well, it was 3 hours long and it happened yesterday, but it was only aired today on state television. And it was an interesting combination of messaging aimed both at an international audience, but as you might expect, mostly a domestic one. Now, on the international front, he was conciliatory. His speech was stripped of the usual anti-West rhetoric, or most of it. And he called for talks not only with South Korea, but for also normalizing relations with what he called hostile countries, as long as they respected the sovereignty of his country. He also said that North Korea, as a nuclear state, would not use a nuclear weapon unless its sovereignty was violated using nuclear weapons.
What did he have to say about the North Korean economy?
He laid out a 5-year plan to help improve the economy, which we're told here hasn't really happened since the 1980s. And so that is significant, especially given the fact that he has, he's previously promised to improve the standard of living here, and also because of the dual challenges of a possible drought situation and the tough UN sanctions that have come into effect. Also significant was his making the argument again that he intends on trying to improve the standard of living while also spending money on nuclear testing. That's a change from his father's policy, which put military matters first, and that may help define his rule.
Now, this kind of access is so rare. What's your experience been like in North Korea?
The headline is that our movement here and our gathering is controlled by government guides. They decide our schedule and where we go each day. And clearly that is different from the way we normally work. But we knew this coming in, and the trick is trying to glean as much information as possible about the situation here within those constraints, but by being on the ground and seeing things for ourselves to the extent possible.
Thank you, Nella.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Nella Ayed to Pyongyang. Candidates for the U.S. presidential election are preparing for more primaries on Tuesday, this time in West Virginia and Nebraska. As the CBC's Paul Hunter tells us, now that Donald Trump has all but claimed the Republican nomination, we're learning more about his policies.
It's become a staple at Donald Trump rallies. Demonstrators loudly for and against Trump. It was no different this weekend in Washington State. Stop it, they're shouting.
Just total unobliterated hate that exists in these people. It's the most horrific thing I've ever seen.
In the days since Trump was named Republican Party's presumptive nominee for president, demonstrations have continued on both sides. And though she's still dogged by rival Bernie Sanders, Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton now targets Trump almost full-time.
I think saying that he's a loose cannon really focuses on some of the statements he's made, which I find concerning. Going back to torture, killing terrorist families, which would be a war crime.
And Trump himself is now pressed about his policy plans, criticized for opposing a raise to the minimum wage.
He basically said wages are too high in America.
Trump said today they're too low. I don't know how people make it on $7.25 an hour, though adding it should be up to states to raise it. Criticized for a tax plan that would benefit the rich, Trump today seemed to reverse that too. Asked about taxes on the wealthy,
they will go up a little bit, and they may go up, but they're going down. Well, I don't know in my plan going down, but by the time it's negotiated, they'll go up.
Confused? Democrats might be hoping so too are American voters. Trump, though, seems unfazed. Criticized as well for making personal attacks on that this weekend Trump wasn't backing off. Here he is on one of Hillary Clinton's rumored potential picks for vice president, Elizabeth Warren.
She's a doofus. She is a doofus. So, Elizabeth, you ever see her? I mean, this woman, she's a basket case.
Trump, who now finds himself losing support among senior Republicans, is meanwhile expected to win yet more delegates in the next Republican primaries Tuesday. It's been that kind of contest. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
People in the Philippines go to the polls tomorrow to choose a new president. They have their own version of Donald Trump, Rodrigo Duterte. He's earned an international reputation for his foul language and outrageous comments. Many Filipinos here in Canada are watching the race closely to see what the outcome could mean for their native country. Tony San Juan is a commentator with Filipino Pinoy Radio in Toronto. He says voters worldwide could affect the result.
If this 1.1 million voters will try to exercise their rights to vote, then it could be a swing vote. In other words, it could sway the electorate and at the same time make the final decision of who's going to win in the national or presidential elections.
The new leader will also be under pressure to ensure the rescue of some 20 foreign hostages and to bring the killers of Canadian John Rosedale to justice. From Manila, reporter Adam Dema has this look at the candidates.
Courage and compassion is the motto of Filipino presidential frontrunner Rodrigo Duterte. His logo is a clenched fist. Monday's elections in Philippines may go down as one of the closest recent memory. The brash Davao City Mayor Duterte is running against 4 other high-profile candidates.
We support Duterte because of his advocacies to eradicate crime, corruption, and criminality. It's not just about the word, but he is the man who can really put action into it.
Marito Fernandez, the spokesperson of the Duterte campaign.
His first step is to curb criminality, because that is from 3 to 6 months. Of course, it's impossible that they could eradicate it immediately, but we would feel different.
It has been 30 years since the Filipino people ousted the corrupt regime of Ferdinand Marcos. Marcos' son, Ferdinand Jr., is now running for vice president. Many Filipinos fear a Duterte-Marcos government, calling it a possible return to strongman rule. In 1986, Cory Aquino became president of the Philippines following the abrupt departure of Marcos. She was a leader in the democracy movement and forced into the presidency as widow of slain opposition leader Ninoy Aquino.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm
Carlos Celdran is a Filipino performance artist and cultural activist. He hosts a weekly walking tour of Intramuros, the walled Spanish fort in the heart of Manila.
You're actually looking at a cycle, right? Aquinos were up, Marcos was down. Marcos is up, the Aquinos are down. Both of them are flawed, but both of them have great appeal to the people.
Son of Cory Aquino and current Filipino president Noynoy Aquino and his successor, Mau Rojas. His campaign is to continue the straight path, but independent candidate Grace Poe promised a government with heart if she's elected president. Nalu Gamboa is Poe's longtime friend and campaign advisor.
She's really a Filipino who wants to serve, and she has the ability to do it. You know, a lot of us want to, but maybe we're not given the same opportunities. And she has, and she can.
Luis Teodoro is deputy director at the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. He's fearful of electoral violence if Marcos returns to power in the Philippines.
There's very little certainty as to who is going to win the election. 2010, it was fairly certain that Mr. Aquino was going to win. Well, one of the reasons then was that his mother died, and Mrs. Aquino is regarded as a democracy icon.
2016 elections will take place Monday, May 9th across the Philippines. Filipinos will vote from the president all the way down to their local councilors. Fernandez believes Filipinos only need to see the success Duterte had as mayor, ridding Davao City of crime to prove himself capable to lead Philippines.
The machinery of Mayor Duterte is the people. He cannot match the money of the other political candidates. His political machinery is the Filipino masses. So that's very hard to do.
Celdran has a more cynical view of these elections.
So right now, when people think that Duterte or that Mar or that any other candidate like Grace is the one leading, they really aren't. So they really think that if you're voting for an insane candidate, that the majority of the country is insane. But it's not.
Adam Dema, CBC News, Manila.
Hundreds of hand drummers walked through downtown Thunder Bay, Ontario this afternoon, beating a steady rhythm. The event was held in response to the deaths of First Nation students in the city and the loss of Indigenous women. As the CBC's Jody Porter tells us, organizers hope their Mother's Day March helps the community heal.
I called for 500, so it looks like I'm reaching my goal.
Francis Wesley dreamed of this day when 500 people would gather, united by a single rhythm, the heartbeat of Mother Earth, pulsing through the city. As the crowd gathered, Paul Shea warmed up his voice. The 24-year-old from Fort William First Nation says an elder gifted him a drum to help with his grieving after a young woman died in his community. He says it's meaningful to play it on Mother's Day.
Like Mother Earth gave us all of our life, so to be able to give back to her in like a healing kind of way and a unity is absolutely wonderful. It's glad that's a big turnout here.
Hundreds of people gathered at a city park at the start of the walk. The event was a rare coming together of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Thunder Bay. Nancy Lynch says she read about Wesley's dream on Facebook and was inspired to join in.
I'm here just because I want to be a part of the healing of what's happening with the First Nations people.
It's a desire and a conversation Patty Haiju says she sees cropping up across the country. Haiju is a local MP and one of 3 Liberal cabinet ministers spearheading the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. She says the pre-inquiry meetings have already increased awareness about the issue.
Seeing the turnout today is just incredible. I don't know if we would have had that kind of turnout if we hadn't had that elevated conversation in this country. And I think it shows that Canadians are concerned from all walks of life.
Haiju said the details of the inquiry will be announced before the House rises for the summer. For Francis Wesley, the time for reaching out in unity for healing is now.
The elders said Mother's Day would be a good day because women are the caretakers of our community. We're the strength of the community, so we thought Mother's Day would be a good fit.
Children carried a banner that read "Heartbeat of the Drum, a walk for healing," and led the procession of hundreds through a downtown street. Wesley says it's a dream come true.
And I want them to hear the drums because drums are a healing tool that we use whenever we feel down. We pull out our drums to call on the Creator to help us.
Jody Porter, CBC News, Thunder Bay. Space buffs are in for a rare celestial event tomorrow as Mercury passes across the sun. Mercury is the solar system's smallest innermost planet, and it will appear only as a small dot. If you want to see it, don't try to look at it directly. You'll need binoculars or a telescope with solar filters. Mercury last crossed between the Earth and the Sun in 2006. It won't happen again until 2019. On CBC Radio 1 and Sirius XM 169, this is The World This Weekend. You can listen online at cbc.ca. Listen anytime. Download The World This Weekend at cbc.ca/podcasting. On Twitter, we're at CBCTWTW. I'm at CBC Martina. This is James Blunt, one of the performers at tonight's opening of the second Invictus Games in Orlando, Florida. Games are an international sports competition for wounded, injured, and sick troops and include current and veteran members of the forces. 14 countries are competing, including Canada. The third.
Je suis pas mal very connected all over the place. Ouais. Comment? Oh, je t'entends. Eh ben, vous caresserez, hein? La sœur à ton... Comment? Ah ouais? Ah ouais. Eh ben, Ça rase pas mal à Québec, quand je trouve qu'il y a une sorte d'affaires qui se passe. Ça rase. Ben, je te dirais son nom. Je pensais que tu étais avec ta mère, toi. Ah ouais? Tu avais été manger au restaurant? OK. Ah. Ah ouais. Bon, ça. Là, moi, c'est ça. OK. Bon, ben, reste sur Facebook, on va se voir sur Facebook. Là, on va voir, parce que je ne l'ai pas souvent sur Facebook. Parce que là, je vois avec mon vieil ordi, il va très rapide. Je vais finir. Là, je suis en direct sur live streaming sur là-dessus. Live streaming. OK, je m'enlace. OK. OK. Oh, c'est...
Empire scheduled these performance reviews for all its minions. So let's view this as a growth opportunity and not a criticism, okay? Okay. So we do have some notes on your management style.
What sort of notes?
It's about killing the staff, actually. You've choked to death 9 of your senior staff members last week.
which is a pretty high choking rate, actually.
They failed me.
I'm sure they did, but have you considered a different management style? Because frankly, we're having trouble finding people who want to work with you.
In spite of the dental plan.
In spite of the dental plan. Look, Darth.
Please, call me Anakin.
Okay, Anakin, let's be frank. Do you realize people around here are actually scared of you? They're afraid that if they approach you with their questions or concerns, you'll kill them.
My door is always open.
The door is always open, but if anybody comes in, you kill them. Do you know how many years training it takes to become a space admiral? The reason we can't catch Han Solo is because we have to keep bringing in rookies because you've choked all the qualified people. Instead of choking people, you might consider giving them a pat on the back.
I don't understand. How would that kill them?
It wouldn't kill them, it would encourage them. It would say, hey buddy, you dropped the ball, but we're all in the same star here. Space is a lonely place, and if we bad guys can't be kind to each other, then why are we out here blowing up planets in the first place?
You made a good point, Kevin.
Great. Well, this has been very productive. Thanks a lot, Lord Vader. And remember, the dark side is supposed to be the fun side, of course. Go get drunk, smoke something, pick a fight with a stormtrooper. We got lots of those. They're cheap.
Very well. May the Force be with you.
Absolutely. See you at the golf tournament.
Do you want me to leave this open?
No, it's just fine.
Okay, bye-bye.
Honey, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest.
Twice, for the first time you were on break.
No, that's it. What?
Nothing. What were you going to ask me?
Do my ears stink?
Ears stink? Why?
Well, the dog really seems to love sniffing and licking my ears.
He just loves you.
He's really going to town on my ear.
Dogs sniff things, honey.
Yeah, I've seen the things he likes to sniff. They're horrific.
Okay. If it'll make you feel any better, I'll sniff your ear. Your ears smell like rancid minestrone. Oh, honey, you've got ear breath. Ear breath. It afflicts 1 in 5 Canadians. Try and smell your ear. You can't. So how can you be sure your ears don't smell like the lunchroom at the stockyards after someone microwaved salmon? Is that stockyard salmon? Or is it your ear breath? Fortunately, there's a solution. The Relevant Enterprises' new product, Ear Serene. All the minty freshness of the mouthwash poured right into your ears. That means it's working. But how can I tell whether I have ear breath? You probably do. But I might not. You do. Just 1 bottle of Listerine in the morning, 3 times over the course of the day, once before bedtime, and again at 4 a.m., and ensure your ears stay as fresh as your mouth. Honey, your ears smell amazing.
That's a relief. Is it wrong that I get the dog's attention?
It sure is. New Ear Serene from the Relevant Enterprises, because you can't hear your own stink.
Hello, I'm Colin Basran, Mayor of Cologne.
and I'm here today with some fun Kelowna facts. Kelowna is an interior Salish word that means grizzly bear. West Kelowna is two English words that mean jealous. Hot, dry summers and cold, snowy winters make Kelowna the perfect place to never feel comfortable. Big White Ski Resort is the perfect winter getaway if you can't afford a trip to Australia, but you still want to hear the accent. According to census, Kelowna has the oldest population in BC, with 19% being elderly and 81% older than that. Kelowna's beaches are famous for their clear water, smooth sand, and the sounds of horny teens driving seas. My personal favorite, in 2008, a rare silence fell over the city of Kelowna when the Okanagan Bridge was replaced, and nobody knew what to complain about anymore. I'm Mayor Colin Bazran, and this has been Fun Kelowna Facts.
Jeff Tompkins, is that you?
Yeah.
I can't believe this. How you doing?
Good.
It's Eric. Eric from high school.
Oh, yeah. Eric from high school. Look, I don't really...
High school!
Don't you hate when that happens? You're in the produce section of your local store, wondering how many nectarines you should buy, and a person from your life comes up and starts talking to you, catching up with you. Look, it's the worst thing that can possibly happen.
Right, so then out of high school, I started working for my dad. Oh, God.
But if you come down to Larry's Community Market, you'll never be trapped in that living nightmare again. Thanks to our stop and chat mediator.
Yeah, first I was in the mailroom. The mail would come in.
I'm gonna have to ask you guys to move this along. If you're loitering here, pretending to be relevant in each other's lives, you're gonna block people's access to the nectarines. And do you know how long those things are right? A second. So get out of here. Go on. Our super friendly stop and chat mediator will make sure you talk for the exact amount of time that's appropriate for your relationship. Hey, you two by the citrus fruits. What the hell's going on over here? Well, it was really funny. I was reaching for an orange and then...
I was reaching for an orange too, so we ended up touching hands.
So you're just striking up a new relationship in the produce section in the middle of the day? It's fate!
Fate brought us together.
No, that was not fate. That was four-eye-hand coordination. Now move along! And also, you're talking to strangers? What is this, the 1930s? Get out of here! Get! The stop and chat mediator, only at Larry's Community Market. Hey, Hannah! I think I met you 4 years ago at another date.
You're listening to The Irrelevant Show on CBC Radio 1. I'm on Tuesday from Kelowna Community Theatre as part of KFX Fan Expo. Today's episode of The Irrelevant Show is brought to you by Mother's Day, which this year is Sunday, May 8th. Mother's Day Sunday is Mother's Day. Sunday, May the 8th, is Mother's Day. Mother's Day, which is this Sunday. Our sponsor of your relevant channel. Okay, guys, that's as many hints as we can give you. Now, you're on your own. And now, please welcome one of the top 2 mothers on the stage right now, Ms. Kathy Durkach.
Is our hearts sad and blue? Do your long avenue? Are your moments of joy as you run? Do your feet yearn to dance? Pack your bags, take a chance. The life that you dream of is there. Montreal, the success place of all. Have adventures that back home you fear. L'Oreal, romantic ephemeral. Have a smoke, eat some cheese, grow up here. You're trying to fashion words of love, words of passion. Don't you call them a cabbage, they'll leave. They often say it's them, call them reputation. A spell of romance you will need. Montreal, hot town, spring or fall, let it go, it is from there you know. Montreal, every horse a cheval, and each drop of joy is breakfast cornflakes are boring. Rollers say, come to me. And let me to his bathrooms have lineups. But the toilet is occupied. Montreal, sexiest town on. I swear I am starting to fall. Montreal, for your freedom's total. It's the words in Joel. Si la table, ouais, j'ai pas ce matin. Pendant c'est toujours juste l'amour. In the sexiest town of the
And welcome to those tech dudes. We are the Tech Dudes, Terry and Cliff. Here at the Consumer Electronics Show, there has been a huge buzz about a long-awaited product. Takahama's robotics new SexBot 6X. This is a big day, lots to cover, so let's get into it.
Takahama has always been the gold standard in cutting-edge mechanized intimate entertainment modules. And with the new SexBot 6X, they've redefined what a SexBot can be.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's all about the operating system. The good news is that the SexBot 6X runs on an Android 5.1 Lollipop Paradox, which supports open developer software development.
But the bad news is the CPU is unstable, and as a result, we have power underruns and errored out. Not impressed.
Lastly, let's talk accessories. The unit comes equipped with required cables, connectors, cords, and software. You should also consider buying a home storage unit.
Yeah. The minute a human woman sees this thing sitting on your couch, they will run away for dear.
Yeah, so to summarize, the redesigned X.66 is some serious hardware improvements. It's still too slow to boot up.
The OS is buggy, there are major menu malfunctions, and the platform is nowhere near where it should be in personal robotics.
Overall, we give the Yokohama X.6X 10 out of 10. Three, two, one. Hey, are you coming to the surprise party? Not now. You know SVP, are you coming? We talk after. I don't have to talk to a box later. Sorry. I'm just trying to get an idea of numbers for the party. I don't want to make the taco platter too big. Nachos aren't good the next day. Tomatoes make them soggy. And this wait 30 seconds? Yes, of course. It's just, I feel like you're avoiding me when we're on the sleigh. This is kind of our only time to chat. I really want Morgan's surprise party to be good. Morgan and I aren't talking. What happened? We need to be close. Back up. Are you trying to get on my nerves? I want my privacy, and being this brand can sometimes be a lot of work. Hard, right? Definitely. I'm agents. No, I mean hard, right? Let me know. Oh, I shouldn't turn my head to speak. I think Morgan throws so much energy at you because he's afraid of being left out. Never thought of it that way. You know what? I'm calling that surprise party. That's great news. Yeah, it sure is. I'm looking forward to those nachos and surprise party you're doing for me. Morgan, can you please give us some space? Sorry. Hey, yeah. 39 seconds. That's a new record. We did it. Great run, guys. Yeah, and you thought we'd do it in authority. Amazing, right? Oh, and you're doing it again. But I'm doing it again. Sorry.
Jeff, I want to tell you something, and I want you to look me right in the eyes.
Okay.
Jeff, my dearest. Oh my God, your eyeballs smell horrible!
And the difference is actually used to me. It's the revolutionary I stink. It's the only product guaranteed to keep your outfits springtime fresh. Here, try some.
Circulant dans une voiture blindée, la fameuse patte mobile. Moi, je m'en rappelle très bien. Il l'a pardonné. Oui, il est allé voir en prison. Ouais, moi, je me rappelle très bien cette patte-là parce que j'avais 10 ans et qu'un bulletin spécial a été diffusé pendant que je regardais Anne Papa de Clé en Audi. C'était comme cette fille-ci, cette affaire-là, un petit monsieur avec le chapeau, le lit vivant. Let's go! Regardez-moi! Un très bon adaptateur sur l'adaptation au théâtre. Oui. Un adaptateur. On va parler. C'est intéressant.